Yeah, it looks like we do have a few attendees joining us. We'll wait for just a moment and allow them to come in before we get started. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Scott Clemens with Clackamas County's Public and Government Affairs Department. Welcome to today's Local Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting. As always, there will be public comment available near the end of the meeting. Today, that will be about 1:20 according to the agenda, and we do have a pretty full agenda, so I suspect that'll be close. I will prompt any members of the public on how to make a verbal comment at that time. You also have the option to send in a question or comment via email for me to read to the council. If you'd like to do that, you can go ahead and email me at clacconews@clackamas.us. Again, that's clacconews@clackamas.us. If you have a comment or question you'd like to deliver in this meeting, we ask that you provide your name and keep your comment to less than 3 minutes. Captain Malcolm McDonald, Director of Clackamas County's Community Corrections, will be chairing this meeting, and I'll turn it over to you now, Captain McDonald.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, LIPSC members and guests today for your attendance. I'm going to get us started and hand this over for the first 2 items, which I'm going to hand it over to our Juvenile Director, Christina McMahon, to get number 2 and our action item, which is number 3. And then when we complete that, we'll go on to action item number 4. Christina.
Great. Thank you, Captain McDonald. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you. And I have the privilege and honor today of introducing a special guest that I asked to come and actually listen in, and hopefully he'll end up being a resource for folks here in our county. So I'm very pleased to introduce Lawrence White to you. He is the brand new, well, I guess not brand new, you've been on the job a little bit here, Lawrence, but I'll let you tell them about it. Lawrence is the brand new, or the new, Racial and Ethnic Disparities Coordinator for the Youth Development Division of the Oregon Department of Education. And you might recall on the day that our county 3 years ago, the day that our county declared a state of emergency because of the pandemic, we also had a guest from the Youth Development Division. Sanji Moore came. She was the former Racial and Ethnic Disparities Coordinator for the Youth Development Division. So it's really, Sanji has moved on to a different position with the state, and Lawrence has joined, and I've had an opportunity to now be in several different meetings with Lawrence, and I know that we're going to be working closely as time goes on. I'm a member of the Youth Development Council, which is a group appointed by the governor, multidisciplinary group, and that's where I really get to interact with Lawrence. So I just asked Lawrence to come learn a little bit about what we do here in Clackamas County, and I thought it would be helpful because Lawrence will be working with counties on juvenile crime prevention and other issues related to that in his work as the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Coordinator. So with that, I was hoping, Lawrence, you'd be willing to just share a little bit of your background with the members and guests of our LIPSC today.
Well, thank you, Christina, and thank you everyone for having me. My name is Lawrence White. I am the newest Racial and Ethnic Disparity Coordinator with the Youth Development Division. Prior to that, I worked for Business Oregon as a compliance specialist with the Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity. And prior to that, I was actually in the state of Washington working with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department for about 23 years as their shift commander in charge of their Adult Detention Center. My background is in criminal justice. My educational background is in criminal justice. But I think what stands out for me the most in doing this work is my upbringing. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I had a peripheral lived experience with juvenile justice and juvenile justice systems through peers, through the environment in which I grew up in, as well as through some family members as well. Luckily for me, I had a really great support system with community-based programs, religious services in my home, and the connections that we had there. I am the youngest of 7 from a single mom, so there was challenges with that, but she was a working mom, and a village really does play a role in raising children, and we had a village around us. So the decisions that were made for us as children really had an effect on our outcome as adults. And I saw the difference between decisions made for my family as opposed to some of the families in my neighborhood. So again, I'm really invested in this work from a personal standpoint, from an educational standpoint, and as well as in a work experience standpoint. I look forward to doing this work and working with all the counties in Oregon. And again, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. We're glad to have you. With that, I think we can go ahead and move on. Captain McDonald, as you said, we've got action item number 3, which is presentation of the Juvenile Crime Prevention Plan for the biennium coming up in July 2023 through 2025. We are required to prepare a biennial plan every 2 years, and we are also, as part of that process, required to bring our plan when it's completed to the LPSC and hopefully get your approval on that plan today. This plan is really focused on funding that we receive through the Youth Development Division. It's called Juvenile Crime Prevention Funding. And the plan talks about all the continuum of what we're doing, with a focus on how are we spending this JCP, Juvenile Crime Prevention Funding, to achieve the goals that we have outlined in Clackamas County. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my Assistant Director, Alice Perry, who is on here today with us. And also very pleased to have Jimena Ospina Todd from Latino Network, who is a co-presenter today, and she is the Youth Empowerment and Violence Prevention Division Director for Latino Network. So that's a long title, but you do a lot of different things, Jimena. So with that, I will turn it over to our 2 wonderful presenters to share about the plan.
Thanks, Christina, and hello, everybody. Welcome, Lawrence. Thanks for joining us today. As Christina mentioned, the Clackamas County Rich Diversion Program is the outcome of funds, or what we do with the funds that we get from the Youth Development Division Juvenile Crime Prevention dollars. And this program serves 11 cities and really reflects the Clackamas County Juvenile Department's commitment to equitable service delivery, to restorative justice, and to evidence-based practice. We are submitting this plan in the context of emerging from a global pandemic, recovering from several declared states of emergencies for the county, at work shortages that have impacted youth provider services, and deep impacts on youth mental health and substance abuse due to the social isolation of the pandemic, and also substance use due to a variety of things, including the effects of Measure 11, the unintended consequences of Measure 11. So the diversion program is part of the spectrum of the services that we offer here at Clackamas County. It is really the first level of services that we offer. We are able to serve youth that have committed low-level offenses and that have low risk in their communities. And in an effort to keep youth where they're living, where they have that support system that Lawrence talked about being so important to them. We do have a graduated levels of service areas. We use other funds to pay for detention when needed. And we use other funds to pay for youth that are served informally through the juvenile department or that have court supervision. But today we're going to focus on the diversion program and what it offers. So again, I mentioned that these services are for the lowest level of offenders, youth who have committed primarily property crimes and status offenses, and that they are served in their own communities. The program offers a variety of services that Jimena will speak to a little bit more here. And we'll go ahead and get right into it. I think, Elizabeth, are you able to pull up the presentation? Or do you want us?
Yeah, if you could pull that up, that's great. If not, I can do it. Let me know.
Jimena, are you able to, or? Sorry.
Everybody should have ability to share here. If you're having difficulty, let me know.
Okay. While Jimena's pulling that up, I will just say that as part of this, you should have all received a copy of the draft plan. I think Elizabeth sent it out, and we've also had the opportunity to share it with a number of folks across a variety of disciplines working with youth and communities. And we held a couple of specific Zoom sessions to share the plan and gather feedback, and also some individual meetings, and including some that were offered to youth and families. You able to pull it up, Jimena, or?
I wonder if Elizabeth has it. I have it, like I have my notes here. Let me try to get to it.
Let me look. I think Elizabeth Tiffany sent it to you, but let me
There
see
you
if I can. Okay, got it. Great. Thank you. So we can go to the next slide.
Thank you. Now I have what I need. My name is Jimena Ospina Todd. I use she, her, hers, ella pronouns, and I am the director of one of the community serving divisions at Latino Network. Latino Network was founded in 1996 by local community leaders seeking to address the challenges, barriers, and opportunities of the Latino community in the larger metro area. Our core values as an organization are the underpinnings of our work, from how we develop our programs and strategies to the ways we treat each other, the way we interact with our community members, our system partners, and participants. While we are a culturally specific organization, we are culturally responsive in our work with youth and families who do not identify as Latinx. Our experiences with the SUN school model, Schools Uniting Neighborhoods, our programs on homeless prevention, early childhood education, health and wellness, and violence prevention and intervention have proven the efficacy of community-centered work that honors families' values, traditions, healing, resiliency, and accountability practices. From our roots planted from our founders to today, we have a presence with youth and families in our 3 local metro counties, Clackamas, Washington, and Multnomah. We currently have offices in Portland, in Gresham, Hillsborough, and Oregon City, and have served an average of 9,000 individuals across all of our programs in the last few years. This has positioned us as the largest culturally specific and responsive agency in our state, with 268 staff members, 98% of us identifying as bilingual and bicultural. Our partnerships with local juvenile departments started more than a decade ago, providing case management to high-risk gang-impacted Latino youth in Multnomah County. Our work across these three counties expands from early intervention, family navigation, mentoring, and intensive case management. We have experience implementing community-based diversion programs since 2015. First, we started with Multnomah County, then in 2019 with Clackamas County with this program with Rich, and then in 2021 with Washington County Juvenile Department. All of this is to say that we have positioned ourselves as experts in community-based diversion services that are rooted in the community, that practice accountability, and also uplift community safety. Next slide.
So Rich, as you will see here, stands for Restoring Individuals, Communities, and Hope. And really, this is a partnership between the department, Latino Network, Rich Diversion Program, and Youth and Communities and Families. And really, each of those components is central to the work that we're doing because, as I mentioned earlier, we want to have youth be accountable, but also be safe and embraced by their communities. So this is a community-centered intervention for Clackamas County youth who have committed low-level offenses and who are considered low risk to reoffend. And again, the program uses restorative justice values and principles where youth are held accountable to their victims and to the community. Next slide, please.
And these are program elements and values. And these were developed in partnership with the Juvenile Department when we were in the planning phases of our program. So we meet families where they're at. That means we assess needs and barriers, identify strengths and opportunities that live with each youth and family. We respect and honor youth and family voices. We work to give youth the opportunity to reflect on their actions, gain insight about the impact of those, and find their own voice on how to make things right again. We also give victims a voice to participate if they want to participate. We support youth and families in learning about the Victim Offender Dialogue Program and also support them in making payments or arrangement to pay restitution. Our diversion agreements uses youth strengths and addresses barriers to hold youth accountable. All diversion agreements are developed alongside a success plan where the youth and the family identify clear actions, steps, and supports needed to complete this agreement. We use culturally responsive interventions. We maintain confidentiality. We support youth and families through service navigation and referrals that are tailored to meet their unique needs. And we also do circle processes, which is one of the methods for restorative justice. And our circles build accountability between individuals and the larger community. And in the circle process, we all come together to draft agreements, engage in deep listening, and seek resolutions. Next slide.
So this slide describes a little bit about the program procedure. So when we receive a youth here, either through our Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center or a police report, youth that have referrals that have, again, a low-level crime or a status offense get assigned to the Rich Diversion Program using our case assignment matrix. And we send these referrals through a secure FTP site to Latino Network.
And once we receive that referral via the FTP site, we do our outreach and our initial assessment. So the program is structured with set phases for outreach by week, up to 4 weeks, and using different strategies to connect with families. Once we connect with the family, we share details about the program and set a time to meet in person. During this phase, we also conduct the short JCP assessment, and this instrument was designed specifically for Clackamas County by NPC to determine the risk factors to recidivate. If you'd score higher than a certain number on the JCP, we will conduct a full screening. Then we go into our intake and engagement phase. And the coordinator during this phase meets with the youth and family in the community to complete the rich enrollment paperwork. That is our release of information, our participant agreement, releases of for pictures, all of that. We also completed the diversion program agreement. This document lists options and agreements for what the youth will do to repair their harm and grow their skills. This document is signed by the youth, the family, and our coordinator. At this phase, we also conduct the youth and family needs assessment tool to identify barriers and potential needs. Then the coordinator, the youth, and the family complete a success plan to clearly identify the supports needed to successfully complete the diversion agreement. When the documents are signed, the coordinator and the youth will agree on times to connect during the following weeks. This is the engagement part of the program, where the coordinator is checking in with youth and family via home visits, phone, text, group events, skill groups, resource navigation, community service hours. And this is about 4 to 6 weeks. And then we'll move into the completion phase. And this is where we would do the last JCP quick screen. We note all completed tasks on our agreement, sign, date, and note closing status on the diversion agreement document. We also provide a copy of this document to the family and the youth. The coordinator closes the case on our database, on our Latino Network database, and the program manager scans and sends the diversion agreement back to the juvenile department. This is also where the youth is celebrated for their accomplishment, and the file is closed on our site and sent to juvenile department. Next slide.
So while the current biennium isn't complete, we do have data for the youth served in 2021 and 2022. So to date, 391 youth have been referred to the program. And you can see here the demographic breakdown of those youth. Next slide, please. And here again are those same 391 referrals, but broken down by age. And next slide, please. So of those 391 youth, 192 youth have completed the program. 123 are still in process. That is, either they're in the outreach phase or they're in the service phase of the program. Of the 192 youth that have completed the program, 98% have completed the program successfully. Next slide, please. Then that is the essence of our presentation. We wanted to leave room for questions that folks need.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Just any trends different with the types of behaviors that are getting the individuals referred to the juvenile department? You see any changes, or is it pretty steady over what you've seen the last few bienniums?
I don't have that specific data at my fingertips. I can give you some anecdotal from but Bridget, do you have?
I don't think that there's been a dramatic shift. I mean, there's been less referrals overall in different areas, but I don't know that we've seen a big shift in the reasons the youth are being referred. But we can, I'm kind of in the process of going back 5 years and looking at all of that right now, so. It's in the works to know what those are.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment, some of the data. So Bridget just rejoined us last month. We went, about 13 months without Bridget and we just couldn't do it anymore. So she came back. So we're glad to have her back. She's got a really big to-do list to get through. But some of the data that we talked about on page 7 of the plan, I'll just read you a little bit about this. In 2022, 95% of youth referred to Rich Diversion Program for non-criminal offenses had a substance or alcohol related offense. Out of all referrals, criminal and non-criminal offenses, the substance use alcohol portion represented 43% of the referrals. So 95% of the non-criminal stuff was related to substance use and alcohol, and then 43% overall was related to that. So I do think that that is pretty much in alignment with what we had seen before, but I do know that after marijuana was decriminalized for adults, we did see a dip in those status offenses coming in. So I do think there is a little bit, and I know Bridget, you have to put it together, but I do think there is a little bit of an increase still with minor in possession of alcohol and possession of less than an ounce of marijuana. We are not seeing referrals come in under Measure 110. And I just wanted to say, Alice, earlier, you mentioned Measure 11, and I think you meant to say Measure 110.
I did. I did.
Wow, those are very different ball games. But
yes,
anyway,
they are.
I think what you were referring to is we are seeing quite a bit of information about kids as part of our JCP risk quick screen and the full assessment. Kids are beginning to use, we're seeing higher percentages of kids who are beginning to use substances at the age of 13 and younger. So that is a troubling trend that we are seeing up, and we'll be compiling more information on that. But anyway, does that help a little bit, Malcolm? I think maybe that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
I mean, Captain McDonald.
I also think, and this came up in one of the sessions we held, that like the response and the work with youth will be addressed for whoever comes in with a substance use referral, but it might look very different from somebody who is just experimenting versus somebody, it will look very different versus somebody who is, more into the abuse needing of treatment phase.
Right.
We have a couple of questions, and I'm just going to start with Commissioner West.
May I add something to your question before we move on to the next? That we are currently providers of the diversion services for Multnomah County and Washington County as well, and we have seen the trend of younger kids experimenting more. So I think this is not just unique to Clackamas County, but unique to, I think, the metro area, the state, younger kids. And that's been the request, right? Like services for younger 12, 11, 10-year-olds.
Thank you for that added information. Appreciate it. Commissioner West, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. So a concern that I'm having, I'm wondering if you guys are seeing this, you're intersecting with this, I think, a looming problem around fentanyl. We know that all the child has to do is experiment once with what he thinks is Adderall, and they're dead because it's laced with fentanyl. And we have the highest increase of fentanyl overdoses in teens and adolescents in the United States, the highest rate of increase, and continuing to increase. Well, Weekly this last week just did a really sad but interesting article on this issue alone. And so when we deal with these a whole new ballgame with fentanyl. I'm just curious about what that has been like for you guys. Where is that relevant here? Are we aware of it? And so I know the school's not doing enough yet, but I had to have this whole conversation with my own son about, you know, the reality of the fentanyl, which is alarming that I even had to have that conversation. But I'm just curious as we talk about this kind of new reality that puts a whole new horrible wrinkle and ugly conversation forward that we all have to have. Like, what does this look like? I guess is paramount for me, because it's not just, oh, alcohol, or I tried ecstasy, or I did this or that, or it's like you tried it and died. So that's my, I don't know, what do you guys think?
Is it okay if I weigh in? I actually do youth substance use prevention for the county, Commissioner West, and so
Please.
we are,
Yeah.
so we would love to speak with you at a different time to let you know, but we are, you know, communicating with the schools, trying to provide curriculum. So we understand, you know, that the need is there. We're working with public health to elevate this issue. It's just that we're running into problems with the schools having limited capacity, and the juvenile department may want to comment on that as well, just with the, like Alice had said about the pandemic and all these other struggles, like the schools are overwhelmed. And so it's been really challenging to kind of grow the curriculum. We do are, you know, working on parent education. We have lots of great partners that are bringing awareness to this issue. And so we would love to talk with you more about what we're doing in Clackamas County if you would like to know.
Yeah, on a broader sense, yeah, Ms. White, thank you. On a broader sense, yes. Absolutely. And I think, you know, it's all hands on deck with this issue, right? But I'm curious about within this sphere that we're talking about, what does the reality look like, and how does it change the service providing that you guys are doing in this aspect? Because I'm sure, are you seeing this trend also here? I guess is maybe my question.
Yeah. So Alice, do you want to talk maybe about the Narcan and the training for our staff and the spurt in the schools
Yeah.
program that
So
we're doing with Latino Network?
Yes. So a couple of things. We are very concerned, as I think people are increasingly becoming concerned nationally on this. So we have trained all of our staff and in the use of Narcan, and partnered with the health department so that every staff that is trained carries it, and the JCs carry it in their car and make training available. We also, whenever we have training, we do our best to make training available to the partners that we work closely with. But also, and I'll get to the SBIRT piece in a second, but I think also just Jimena talked about those real individual success plans that they work with the family. So really that conversation is a starting place to have a real honest conversation with the families and the youth about what's going on, how can we support you without judgment, but what support do you need? Because sometimes families may not be aware, and sometimes youth probably are less aware than they think they are, right? We have been partnering, doing a pilot project with Gladstone High School, which is a universal screening called School-Based SBIRT. And it is a screening to identify mental health concerns, substance use concerns, but also identify youth goals and strengths and build from those youth and strengths so that they're seen as a whole individual, not just, yes, the youth will get referrals to treatment and to the support they need, but they'll also be seen as individuals that have a lot to offer and that have a lot to give, which I think is also central, not just to interrupting substance use, but also to having the youth see their own potential as well. Jimena, do you want to add anything to that?
I think through the pilot in Gladstone, we've been able to identify youth who would have not been otherwise identified as needing support, and that's one of the benefits of this universal screening. We also, the youth have asked our coordinators conducting the screenings to provide more information around drugs, fentanyl, all of that. And they're working on a public service campaign at the high school to bring information for their students, just like to present them on the TVs and on the lunchrooms and all of that. Just very accessible, easy to digest, not very wordy, very youth-centered information. And that was something we were able to identify through the screening, the universal screening with the 9th grade class of Gladstone High School.
Thank you for that. Just a quick follow-up. I think it was Miss Annie. Am I saying their last name right?
My name?
Yeah, is it Zanny, Miss Brid? Am I
Oh,
saying?
no. Oh, Bridget.
Bonnie, yeah.
Oh, Zani, thank you. Sorry, I wasn't always pronouncing it correctly. I guess along that, you meant, I think it was you that mentioned, hey, the youth that we work with, a high percentage of them, I can't remember the number you gave exact top of my head, maybe it was like 70% or I can't remember exactly, had experimented, tried, or had some type of drug offense or something along those lines. And I'm just also curious, we're hearing these reports, right, in Oregon, these numbers, are you guys seeing fentanyl in your work? Like, are you seeing it get into the, like, it is not like an outlier for us. It's here right now. You all are dealing with this monster today. Am I right?
Yeah.
Or kids that are interacting with drugs are also interacting with fentanyl.
Yes.
Okay. And we don't know how much.
We unfortunately lost a young person in the past year who overdosed from fentanyl. So we dealt with that in a very real way. Appreciated Mary's help, Mary Rumba's help bringing in some resources for our staff. We've had other young people that have overdosed, but fortunately haven't passed away. So yes, it is something that we're dealing with, and we never know. I mean, we had something routine happen about a week and a half ago, and it wasn't fentanyl, but resulted in 2 kids that ended up having to be hospitalized for very serious issues. So we just never know when it's going to come up. And sometimes we have to wait for the test to come back to let us know if it's actually fentanyl. So
is it stories where it's laced, or they're getting the blue or rainbow pills? Or is it laced stories mostly? I'm curious.
I don't have that level of detail, Alice. We don't usually, we should ask our juvenile counselors though,
Yeah.
what they're hearing about.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks for indulging my questions. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. One more question, and then from Lawrence White.
Thank you. Real quickly, you mentioned a 98% success rate from those who had participated in the program. I guess my question is there any one process within the RICH process that stands out, that has a greater impact in contributing to that success rate?
I can speak to that, and I think, or unless Christina or Alice. Lawrence, I think our success goes back to building these authentic relationships with families, right? Families really do feel honored and respected in the process. They contribute, they choose what they want to do within this menu. And so that increases the buy-in. Families do want to be a part of this. Youth do want to complete. So I think that's crucial to the success, right? It's not just saying, go do this, but it's engaging families and really honoring how they want to repair their harm.
Thank you. Well, since we're on limited time, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the Clackamas County Juvenile Crime Prevention Act.
Mary Rumbasso moves.
So I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Judge Leininger?
I think you said Juvenile Crime Prevention Act,
Oh.
but you're talking about the plan, right?
The plan, yes.
That's what I thought. Great.
Thank you for the clarification as I confuse it with my world of community corrections. I have a motion and a second, and no further discussion. As we do, is there any opposition to this plan? Hearing no opposition, the plan moves forward as passed.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jimena and Alice.
Yes, thank you for the presentation and the good dialogue. I'm going to jump right into our final action item. And we have Priscilla and Jennifer from the courts regarding the treatment courts application for the Oregon Criminal Justice, so I should say specialty court grant program. I will let them jump into it. I am going to highlight that we're going to look at a conditional LPSIC approval. Well, they're still working on it. They had a very short time frame to get this done. I think just over a month. And so we'll let them give us an overview of it, and then we can have some discussion and figure out how we're going to move forward. Priscilla or Jennifer?
Hello, thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Priscilla Goss. I am the treatment court coordinator here in Clackamas County, and I am the coordinator for drug court, mental health court, and Dewey court. And we are presenting a new grant application that just opened for CJC grants to fund our 3 programs and to sustain us through the next couple years. Just a little oversight of our programs. Adult Drug Court is a program where we promote public safety and accountability by improving the lives of participants with substance use disorders through integration of intensive services, alcohol and drug treatment, mental health services, drug testing, and case management. And that's actually what our process is for all 3 of our courts. And in drug court, and I just wanted to give a couple facts of the programs, and I can give in more detail about each program. But in 2021 through 2023, we've had 182 referrals through the 3 courts, and we've had an 82% acceptance rate. In an adult drug court, where we deal with participants that are high risk, high needs, and usually on a departure case, we have a 51% graduation rate out of the 73 participants over the last 3 years, which is a pretty successful in our terms. We are looking in the next 2 years to really address why our graduation rates are at 51% and how we can improve practices. And one of the goals of our grant application is housing. Housing is a big program need. And so we are, if you look at when you get our grant proposal, we have increased the need for our housing cost. In mental health court, we have a 63% graduation rate, which is steady, and we've had that for the past years. And in Dewey Court, we have actually an 83% graduation. We are currently working on a project to track our recidivism rates here in Clackamas, as well as CJC is also conducting a recidivism study for some future evaluations of our programs to see where we need to improve and to make sure that we uphold the standard of the Oregon Specialty Court standards and the national best practices. Each program is a little bit different, but we use Clackamas. We have partnerships with the state courts. Our CCHC or CCBH is our treatment provider for all 3 courts. We also use case management services, probation and parole through Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, and of course our Defense Consortium and our Public Defender's Office. District of Attorney's Office, excuse me. And so our programs are, we meet in court weekly, and it depends on which phase each of the participants are in. They may come weekly, bi-weekly for an accountability piece. We provide incentives through acknowledgement in courts, gift cards, and we are looking to expand our incentive programs to some educational programming, but that is grant related. And we would apply some of the funds to providing some maybe cooking classes or some other educational programming for our participants. And in our Dewey Court, We have seen significant growth over the last 3 years. We have doubled. We are at 32 participants, where in 2021 we were only down to 12. Adult drug court, we have 30 participants, where in 2021 we had 9. And in mental health court, we are steady at 30 participants, where we've historically had about 30 to 35 participants. Now, when we look at the grants, we have asked for a little bit more funding for some particular areas. And I have Jennifer Stone here, who is our county accountant too, to answer any more of the, if you have any questions about the financial piece. I did send a rough draft of our grant application. Grants opened early this year. We usually look at them in June and July, but they opened in March and are closing in April 15th. So we are under a different deadline than we are used to. And so that is why we are presenting today. And unfortunately, we didn't get you a full complete draft of the grant, but we do have some numbers in front of you. One of the big things, again, is we are asking an increase in housing. One of the things that we need is, and we find that our courts are particularly more successful if we have immediate housing for participants who come out of jail and need to go into supportive housing right into phase 1. We find more success if they have that housing than finding if they must find their own house. And the other thing we have asked for is, this year, we are asking for cost for our UA system, and one of those cost increases are testing for fentanyl. So we are seeing that in the adult drug, population, as well as across our courts. So with the additional cost of the fentanyl test, we make sure we have a large panel for our UAs. And we have asked for an included cost of that. So historically, we have not asked for that, but this year we are, because the need for that higher level UA for all of our participants because of fentanyl and having it identified as one of the requirements in our programs is a very important, because we also see, the fentanyl use and, relapse around fentanyl. I apologize if I'm moving fast. I know we're on a time limit. And then we usually use most of our grant funding for our participant support needs. We are asking for additional support in our treatment. We need a new therapist because our Dewey Court has grown significantly. So we're looking for particular new therapists, maybe who is bilingual, to come in and help with our program. So we have asked that in our grants. And we've also asked for additional supports around housing. So I do apologize that the full grant was not presented to you, but we are working hard to get you but these numbers that I sent out just about an hour ago are the ones we are currently working with the most. But I'm not sure if Jennifer Stone has anything to add, and I know I rushed through, but I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So I'll be happy to answer questions.
Priscilla, just a couple of follow-up or context for first, the grants going to the Criminal Justice Commission. Have they identified the total amount of money available to the state for specialty courts yet?
They did not, not to my knowledge. I mean, they may have something, but I did not get an amount that they are distributing out. I know that they have been holding a lot of training and support around the grants, because CJC is asking for a lot of new identifying information, such as the MOUs, but I do not have those numbers.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if legislatively they have received, or there's a plan for how much money will be available. I had another question for you, or another follow-up for that. But system-wise, your application is very similar to the prior bienniums in that the program will be staying for the most part the same. You're asking for some additional money, and historically, you don't always get the amount of money you ask for. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. For instance, in the 2021 application, we asked for, let me give you, for adult drug court, it was about $800,000 and we got $200,000. But we were able to supplement both adult drug court and Dewey Court with a BJA grant that we received a reward for. So we are roughly asking about the same amounts of 800 for adult drug court, and that includes housing.
And just for LIPSIC's additional, since adult parole and probation participates and provides a PO to the treatment courts, and many of our drug court participants are CSAP graduates, or the CSAP is a primary source of their treatment for inpatient services. So that comes out of the normal community corrections state funding, so it is a partnership. But we still have legislative session to get through and see kind of where all our resources are. I know we have another question from Judge Langer. I will recommend that when we have a motion that we support the tentative approval of the application. But I'm going to go to, first question is from Judge Langer, and then Seth Lyons will be on deck.
Thanks. I want to speak in favor of this proposal. I had the privilege of working with Priscilla and others on treatment court programs for a while. I worked on the drug court program for a while, and I think it is a really important way for people to be held accountable for crimes. Like if you burglarize someone's house, or you steal cars and steal a lot of people's IDs and rack up a huge number of charges that are going to cause real problems to them, it's okay for people to get in trouble for that, or to be accountable for that. But if your substance use disorder is one of the things that causes you to do this program here, drug court, but also Dewey Court, and I know mental health court is different, but provides a path for people to get a handle on their addiction, which is maybe a reason, but not an excuse for criminal conduct. And I think that the team of Judge Steele and Priscilla with the other treatment court providers is really trying to provide people with an opportunity to get a handle on recovery, even as they're accountable for harmful conduct. And so I have a lot of respect for the work they're doing, and I support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Judge Langer.
Seth Lyons.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing the rest of it. I really excited to see the increase in housing, and just wanted to ask two questions about that. One is, I see what you've got budgeted here as Iron Tribe, so I'm just trying to grasp from the short presentation whether folks are going straight into Iron Tribe sometimes, or is it CSAP first and then Iron Tribe? And then second question is, like, what is the actual increase in capacity where you are now and where you're going to? It was hard to tell that from the document.
So Iron Tribe or Galea House is one of our housing, and what we do, we aim to do is, if we identify why participant is in custody, if they need housing, adult drug court in particular, we put them directly into one of our houses, either Arbor House or Galea House. Same with mental health court. If we identify such as someone who's houseless, and that's a big population that's coming in, we identify them and get them directly into one of our housing units that we have contracted with through Bridges of Safety and Galea. And this is where we are increasing, because our numbers are increasing and have shown that our growth is there, and we are increasing weekly. We have asked for more beds because we want to be able to serve the participants that come in and need that bedding and that housing. And what we do is usually by phase 2 or 3, we fund the housing and then we get them employed. Once they're employed and can self-sustain, then we ask them to move into their own sober housing and pay for it, or they can do one of our subsidy beds that are actually subsidized, and they pay partial rent on that. And so the housing is such a big unit issue, and that's how we get them there. I think I answered both questions, but I apologize if I missed one. And Jennifer, do you have anything to add to that? But that's really the goal, is to get them from, identify their needs, move them in. Dewey Court's a little different. Our participants are a little bit more of their needs a little different. So but we still use them. Now, CSAP is our highest level of care. And so we really look at CSAP if it's the need of the criminogenic need and the inpatient levels there. And then so we move them in there, but that is not our first goal for most of the participants. Usually they'll go into one of the other housing. So it's CSAP, highest level. Other participants go into these other housing units.
Thank you. Commissioner West, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm supportive of this. I want to just say, when I look at issues like this, and I may not know every detail of a specific program, right, as I, here providing oversight and learning about it, but is it fit within what I would consider a recovery focused model? And is it about self-sufficiency, wholeness, at the end of the day, that stops the cycle through that recovery lens? And so I find this to measure up to that. Not every program does. Not everything we've tried in Oregon or the metro area does measure up to that, in my opinion. But this does do that. And so it is a worthwhile endeavor. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional items before I call for a motion?
I would just say that the other increase that we're adding to the budget this year is a very, 5% of an FTE, in order to try to start covering some costs that assessments are required to participate in this program. And that is a cost that we cannot bill for and not cover. So we've added just that, fingers crossed that maybe in each of these programs, we could start covering some of that assessment cost for our staff.
So you don't currently have the funds to cover that additional half FTE?
No, we're, as health centers, we get the job done, but it would also be nice to have a little bit of a cushion there where we could just a small percentage of money from the grant go towards funding that work so that we can get the people in the program, because it is a required element for them to have this assessment, but yet it's not something we can bill for.
Just to add to that for everyone to know. So we do, when we do screenings to have some participants will observe the programs and then be screened by our partner CCHC. Those screenings historically have not been funded. They do that as part of their partnership agreement. And then, but with the mass increase, we have almost doubling almost all of our courts. They need to cover those screening costs because it is a bigger percentage of their job time, because we are asking for all of our partners, our judges and everyone to refer to our program, so that they have a more increased need for those screening costs. So.
I can't speak to directly today on the funding of that specific FTE, but I'm listening. I'm listening very acutely. And I think that the county has been clear that public safety is a #1 priority for our county, and you guys are absolutely a part of that. And essential to that kind of robust lens and the way in which we plan to deal with this. So let me noodle on that. Let's have continued conversations. I don't want to make funding commitments. I don't think you're asking me to, but I want to know more about this, and I want to and keep it on my radar.
Absolutely. We appreciate you've been noodling on it.
I'm going to noodle.
With how these applications go, we always kind of, this is the Cadillac version, and then we see how it kind of circulates down through the application and the review process, and then what we actually get, then we can make do with.
My policy analyst is, I think, listening to this too, so I'm sure she's taking notes. So we'll circle back with you guys on this, and make it an important topic to dive into and to kind of deal with.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, follow-up? Could I have a motion to conditionally approve the submission of the specialty courts grant application.
I move to approve conditionally whatever Malcolm just said.
I'll second that. Well, no, maybe I shouldn't. Because I'm,
You can second it. You are,
well, I'll defer to Christina since I've worked in the program.
I will second for you, Judge.
no,
Can I just
Yeah.
ask a clarifying question?
yes.
What is the condition? Because I think, aren't we just really voting that we approve this and we're gonna trust that the application is in alignment with what we've heard today? We're not gonna come back to look at it before it's submitted.
We'll have an opportunity to review it after it's submitted. We had a conversation with Ian from CJC, and in the past, this has been a course that LIPSCC can take to conditionally approve it. It can be submitted. We'll note that, and at our next LIPSCC meeting, if there's any need to discuss it, we can. It hasn't been funded yet. There will
Right.
be plenty of time, because I don't believe they'll know their budget figure until session is done. Like
Right.
many of us will be in limbo until that point. So, and we'll be back to discuss my justice reinvestment funding also here in the next couple of months. So, yes.
Great.
You
So
want,
we had,
Thanks.
you want me
Thanks.
to reiterate that motion?
no, I think we are good. We had a motion and a second. We had one discussion item. Is there any additional discussion? No. Hearing no discussion, further discussion, is there any opposition to this moving forward? Hearing no opposition, it moves forward. I look forward to the completed application. As soon as that's done, we will get it out to the membership just for review. And that, just for everyone's education, that will go to the Criminal Justice Commission, who will review every especially treatment courts application around the state. They'll ultimately decide what funding goes where. So that will also be a public meeting if anyone was interested when that happens, but I don't foresee that happening until after session is closed and they know their budget. All right. We had a couple, well, there's one extra item that didn't need to be on there. Just please, I haven't heard from anyone. If anyone is interested in being vice chair on LIPSCC, reach out to me. And then we can cross that bridge at one of our upcoming meetings. Other than that, if there's no further items, I'm going to ask Scott to see if there's any public comment.
This is the public comment section of the meeting. If you have a comment you'd like to make, you have two options. You can raise your hand in the chat and you'll be able to make your comment. You won't appear on screen, but the committee members will be able to hear you. Or you can send your comment to our email address at clacconews@clackamas.us. Please be sure to keep your comment under 3 minutes. So with that, if you have a comment you'd like to make, please raise your hand in the chat. And I'll also be checking to make sure any email comments are read. And I am not seeing any questions either in email or amongst the attendees here. So,
okay,
good to go.
Well, thank you for everyone making it today's meeting. Welcome, Commissioner West, to your first LIPSCC meeting. Appreciate having you here.
Thank
Great
you.
presentations today. I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
luck on that
Appreciate
grant
it.
application.
Thank you. Appreciate it.